Hi everyone, this is Matt from Touchgrass Gardening. Today we're going to be talking about my lychee tree and how to grow a lychee tree in the desert, as well as how to prepare your lychee tree to get through winter in a place that gets below freezing. So here we get between about 25 Fahrenheit and 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. So you're really looking at a broad range of temperatures with a sensitive tropical tree. And we're going to talk about how to get through winter today. So right now you can see that it actually has a lot of new growth, which means that the lychee tree likes it when it cools down a bit. In the summer here, we really don't see that much new growth because the lychee tree is just protecting itself and trying to get through the hottest temperatures. But since it's gotten down to about 70 degrees in the day and 40 degrees at night, it's really put on a ton of new growth. And this tree is 2 years in the ground. I bought it as a 25 gallon, so it was about 3 feet tall when I bought it. It's about doubled in size in both the width and the height. And so it's done really well here. When you're thinking about planting a lychee tree in the desert, specifically here in Phoenix, Arizona, you really want to think about a spot in your yard that has filtered all day sun. So for me, I have it on the north side of an oak tree. And so you really want to have that sun not be directly on the lychee tree, but to have it be filtered through another tree that isn't super thick, but is thick enough to protect it when it's 120 degrees out. But the lychee also needs some sun to put on fruit in the spring. So you also don't want to put it in a completely shady spot. So ideally, you want it behind a large tree, potentially a large deciduous tree that would lose its leaves in the winter. Because the lychee does like sun, it just doesn't like super hot sun. So in the winter, I continue to fertilize this tree with just foliar feeding. So I do that every 2 to 3 weeks. You saw the foliar feed I used last week, but I'll link it again in this video. So I spray the underside of the leaves every 2 to 3 weeks. And I don't use any type of ground fertilizer in the winter because I don't really want that much new growth. Like right now there's a ton of new growth, but we're getting closer and closer to freezing. And so I don't want those sensitive leaves to get frostburn when we get down below freezing. We're not going to freeze for another week or two, but I think this is a good time to show that this is the last of the new growth that I want. And so I might skip a week or two of foliar feed to not really push out any new growth. Because the lychee tree is interesting in that it likes cooler temperatures, but it doesn't like its leaves to get frost on them because that's what'll burn the leaves. It likes ambient cold temperature, but it doesn't like frost on its leaves, which for a tropical tree is somewhat rare when you think about, say, a mango or a jackfruit. It doesn't like cold ambient temperatures, but this lychee does. And so that's why I don't need to create a greenhouse around it. All I really need to do for the lychee is put frost fabric all around the tree when it gets below freezing. And that's what we're going to show next. So what do you use to cover your lychee tree? I just use frost fabric, which you can find at pretty much any nursery or on Amazon. And so just search for any frost fabric. I looked for the highest rated one and bought it. For a larger tree like this, you want to be able to look for the largest amount of area space that you can with one sheet of frost fabric. So I found a 10 by 30, which I use for the entire tree. And this doesn't even cover the entire tree. So I cut up another one and have to use even additional to this. And that's the thing about this tree now is it's actually harder and harder to cover as it gets bigger. So we'll see how it does this winter. Last winter, it just had a few burned leaves on the very edges of where the frost fabric had slipped a bit during the night. But overall, the majority of the tree was fine. And so what you really want to do is cover the entire tree with the frost fabric and make sure that none of the leaves are exposed to the outside air, because that's what's going to contact with water and air to freeze the leaves. All right, so now it's covered, and what you can see is that there's no leaves sticking out anywhere. That's what you really want to aim to do, is to have everything covered. And what I've found is that it works best when you have it covered with 2 layers of the frost fabric, because you're basically going to see that in the mornings it's a little bit wet on top. And so if you have 2 layers, one layer that's pretty much against the plant itself, and then another layer that's against the outside air, it'll better protect the leaves from freezing. And with a tree this big, you're not going to be able to cover the frost fabric or the tree with the frost fabric without touching the tree. And that's really the difficulty. Some people might create a structure, you might put stakes all around it. I really don't think that's necessary with lychee because it's not that cold sensitive. And I like to take this off once our cold spell goes away. So it might be, below 30 for a few days, and then it'll warm up again for a few weeks. And when I see that in the weather forecast, I'll take off the frost fabric after that. So it's a bit of a pain, as you saw, putting it on. So I don't like taking it on and off every day and night. I'll just look and see what are the cold spells. I leave it on throughout the day and the night. I don't need to take it off during the day. But once I see it's going to warm up a little bit, I'll take it off, let it breathe, let it get some sun, do the foliar feed, make sure it's getting its nutrients. And then once I see it's getting below freezing again, I'll put this structure back on. And I think that's been a pretty good method for me, at least in the first 2 winters here. And as you can see, the tree was doing great. So I think it is possible to grow a lychee in the desert if you give it sun protection by having it behind a big tree in the summer and also protecting it with frost fabric in the winter. So I think this is a way that you can enjoy one of the most delicious fruits in the world here in the desert in Phoenix, Arizona. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comment section, and please like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.